Welcome to the Sonic Collective, a music podcast that explores a different album or musical concept each month, diving deep into its history, context, and impact on the music industry. Join our hosts, Alan, Scott, and Darren Scott, that's way too many Scotts, as they share their thoughts, insights, and personal connections to the music, inviting you, the listener, to discover new perspectives and appreciation for some of the greatest albums and music of all time.
Hello, all you people out there in Sonic Collective land. I'm Scott G, and I'm here to introduce my pick for May 2024. I'm joined by the rest of the crew, Scott C., Alan, and Darren, and this month we dug into Fiona Apple's 1996 debut album, Tidal. It went platinum in Canada and triple platinum in the USA and won a Grammy for the single Criminal. But we don't review singles here. We review albums. And while I love Criminal and Sleep to Dream, I couldn't recall ever giving a Fiona Apple album a full listen through, which in hindsight seems criminal. I have some pretty strong thoughts about this album, but like all of you out there, I'm eager to learn what the other guys learned about the album and what they thought of it after listening for the month. So without further ado, I'm going to pass the mic to Darren and see what he thought.
Thanks, Scott. I mean, obviously, I knew of Fiona Apple, but I can't say I listened to a lot of her. Not sure how I got missed, but just the way it was. So I mean, I remember her from kind of the Lilith Fair years and I knew a few of her songs. I always kind of thought she had a cool voice, thought she was cute. But I got to admit, when I first started listening to this, I was like, well, first of all, and we said this before, myself and I know others on this group too, we're not necessarily always into slower music. And I did struggle a little bit with just kind of the overall, downerness of it all. Not downerness, but just like it's very deep in a lot of ways. She writes from the heart. So I'll take you on my journey. So I started listening and I was like, okay, it's a little down. I'm not super into this style of music necessarily, but appreciate that she does have a good voice. And I kind of started dipping into it and it wasn't really gelling with me, but I always do my research. I'll usually listen to a few other podcasts or YouTube shows about the artist just to kind of see what others are saying, get a good vibe. I kept giving her, more listens, and then it slowly started to grow on me. But I think what really changed it for me when I just started to realize, where she was coming from. And first of all, like what blew my mind is that she actually wrote these songs as a teenager. Like this album came out when she was 18. I'm like, I think I knew she was young, but I wasn't really paying attention to that. And then I'm like, wait a sec. She was fucking like 15, 16, 17 when she was writing these songs and then like recorded them at 18. I'm like, that is insane. Like, so real just there. And if you listen to her, and I mean, she is a trained pianist. So the piano is really her instrument. But she's really good at the piano. And then just, her style was amazing to me. They call it the cadence of just how she's singing. And really, almost more than anything, I will give her credit. I really think her voice is an instrument. And that's saying a lot. Sometimes you just hear songs and people are singing lyrics and it's in a very general, it sounds like anybody could have sang that. And you would just kind of go with it. But when you realize that just, again, the ups and downs and how she's singing these lyrics is very interesting. And she is truly a master of it. The one cool story I learned about it was apparently when she was first learning piano, I mean, she's young and, this is probably now going back to the, 80s, she'd be this young woman, learning about piano and everything. And then she had this book of like American jazz standards that she would get, but she actually had no idea. She never heard of them. So we're talking like Sarah Vaughan, Ella Fitzgerald, Billie Holiday, like that kind of artist. She seemed to be drawn to the American great jazz artist and those American standards from kind of way back and, going back like 40s, 50s. But she had actually never heard these songs. So she would just like, oh, I'm going to play this one by Billie Holiday. And she would learn it. And then she said she would just sing it in a style she thought was cool and then go back and listen to see how she compared to the original. I thought that was actually really cool. I think that, what a way to kind of like, I've heard these people are famous. Here's a song by them. I'm just going to see how I would do it and compare notes. So she does very much sound like a lot of these great, American jazz musicians from that era, like the three I just mentioned and more. Definitely has that tone. So, I mean, she is borrowing from that and kind of making it her own. But, again, just the way she sang and around and danced around the kind of the rhythms of the music itself, it was like I very much came to appreciate how much of an instrument her voice is. Like if I think of like, and I hate to bash this guy because hey, everybody does their own thing, but like Maroon 5 and Adam Levine, I think he has a good voice. Don't get me wrong. I know that guy can actually sing, but fuck off. It's mostly auto-tune and computers just trying to match it. And I just feel it's a very produced way of using like an Adam Levine as an instrument versus how she just did it. I just think, that just the quality there of her voice is very apparent. So I'm going to start there. So I really grew to appreciate that. Now, I also have an asterisk here. Like she was sexually assaulted as a young woman, and that is very apparent. And she went through a lot of trauma and pain. And hey, if you're suffering or in something, please get help. I came from a family rife with, addiction and assault issues and all that kind of thing. Not me personally, but exposed to it. So I'm very sensitive to that. And I actually think that's some of the reason I actually struggle with this album, because her lyrics are very deep and touching and dark at times. And, I think I actually struggle with that personally, just because I think it hits a little too close to home sometimes. But I mean, the songs are well written, well structured, especially when you realize, like, I mean, I have a son that's 16 now, and I'm like, God damn it, Zach isn't writing anything like this anytime soon. You just realize the talent she had at that time. So very appreciative of that. I mean, she's just like such an amazing artist that way. I even heard Kanye West was a big fan of that cadence. And so you think even how he kind of came on the scene and Kanye-isms aside, he really did change kind of the cadence of rap, and his style was very, it was developing at that time. So he was literally developing his style at the time, and he actually credits Fiona Apple for teaching him about how to really think about how you're placing your words and hitting those beats and notes at the same time. So I thought that was really cool as well. Yeah, some great songs on there, like really good. I just struggled a little bit with the down tempo of it all and, some of the content, but, I found it quite interesting. So, I'm going to leave it there for myself. I'm fine. Let's see what the other guys thought. Alan, I'll throw it over to you for now. What do you think about this album?
Yeah, thanks, Darren. I like what you said about the auto-tune thing when you sort of called out Adam Levine of Maroon 5. We're not going to win any fans with.
Hey, it's a style, it's a thing, and a lot of artists do it now. But yeah, I just think you see a difference, right?
Totally. Yeah, and I was thinking about this the last time I was listening to the album, which was earlier today. I think Fiona Apple's style of singing would actually be hindered by auto-tune, because her ability to control her tone and hit the notes while still maintaining that, I don't know what you call it, swinginess or flowiness or looseness, for lack of a better word. It's one of the strong points of her vocal ability. She can just it's that jazz thing where she doesn't necessarily need to hit the exact note at the exact time, and that's what makes it what it is. So yeah, anyway, I remember there being some kind of buzz about Fiona Apple back in the late 90s, but to be honest, I never really listened to her, and I kind of forgot about her. And she doesn't really seem to want to embrace stardom, and only releases an album on average of like every 5 or 6 years. So she's just not part of the musical lexicon, or the popular music lexicon anyway, but maybe she should be. Because the truth is, I was really happy when Scott picked this album. Recently, I have been exploring Fiona Apple's discography. After hearing a couple of her songs on some shit mix playlist during a engagement with a mind-altering substance, I found myself really like entranced by her rich songwriting and the introspective vocals and just the overall sonic characteristics of her music. And in particular, the songs Slow Like Honey and Criminal were on that playlist, and they really stood out to me. Both of those songs are, of course, found on Tidal, with Criminal obviously being her biggest hit, and actually her biggest hit ever to date, and the first single from her debut album. Dudes, I think Fiona Apple's music is critically underrated. Pun intended. Criminally. Fuck, I fucked up the pun. Scott, don't even edit this out. That was my bad. I was supposed to say criminally underrated. Pun intended. Anyway, this, like, man, I'm just blown away. But Darren, you nailed it, man. She was like 18 when this album came out, or whatever, like 18, 19. She brings such a smooth and jazzy approach to her vocal performance, and there's such an earnest maturity in her songwriting. And critics compared her music to Alanis Morissette's and Tori Amos, which were obviously big names around the same time. And I think that's really high praise. Sonically, this is just such an interesting album. When you look at the list of credits of session musicians that contributed, it's a mile long, and they're all playing like really different instruments. And when you listen to the album, you can hear all these instruments in the mix. And again, like, thinking about the time and place that this came out, which was the late 90s, when the world was just starting to wean itself off of grunge and alt rock, which had kind of saturated popular music. You know, Fiona goes beyond the usual bass and drums and guitar combo, and this album employs such unconventional instruments. Like, there were marimbas and vibraphones and like a variety of different keyboard and synth arrangements, and it kind of brought a very cinematic quality, I felt, to the whole listening experience overall. And, you know, I think for best results, this is an album you should listen to in a dark room and just ponder it with like a good drink in your hand, and optionally your choice of mind-altering substance. Darren, you're usually the one who does the shout-outs, but I got to shout one out. Sticky Greens Sweet Freeze. It is a sativa, and it made this album really good.
I'll have to try that one.
Yeah, man, highly recommended. But even if you're not into mind-altering substances, just give this album a listen on really good speakers or your headphones so that you can pick up all of the hidden detail and texture that the producers buried in this mix, because they're really easy to miss otherwise, but they really add such a depth. Yeah, I mean, it does start to feel a bit more slow-tempoed in the back half. Like, if you're listening to the full album from front to back, it is a bit of a drain. So I will echo what you said, Darren. And I think that's probably, for me personally, the biggest downside. Although the song Carry On closes out the whole album, and I think that was a solid song to end on. My favorite tracks on the album are Criminal, which I would one day love to do a gender bender version of at karaoke. Sleep to Dream, which has like a really jazzy quality juxtaposed with that biting and angsty sort of lyrics that she penned when she was an angsty teenager. And the song Slow Like Honey, which sounds like honey being poured into your ears. It's just a slow and sexy jam that probably would have found a happy home as the title song of a James Bond movie or something. It's just got such a cinematic quality to it. Anyway, I am rambling now, so why don't I throw it over to Scott Coates.
Thanks, Alan. And boy, do I feel like a tool with what I'm about to say about this album after Darren dove in on her background and how young she was and all of the real, artistry of it, which I completely agree with. And I always appreciate, Darren, that you do that extra research, because I don't. And Alan, I mean, the layers, the texture, all things I completely agree. I'm kind of bad with music in that I love it, but boy, do I really not actively listen to lyrics closely at all. Typically, I don't know why. It's just them doing other stuff. So I just kind of groove, right? And overall, this one lost me. So, like Darren said, wow, full props to that background and doing it at such a low age as well. Always full respect for singers and songwriters. And again, I agree on the texture and the layers. Absolutely. Alan, her voice is interesting, but somehow I found it kind of spooky right on that out of the gates with that first one, Sleep to Dream. Like, ooh, this is an interesting voice. And I knew I'd heard her, but I didn't know what it was I'd heard until I got to Criminal. And then I'm like, oh, this is a song I've heard of her. But I think I've only ever heard that song. But I really found her voice right at the start, kind of just a bit uncomfortable and creepy. But Shadowboxer, I mean, it's almost a song I like, but there's just not enough different about it. And you guys are going to kill me. I just felt like this was the same thing for an entire album. It was steady. It was sort of a monotone voice, didn't fluctuate. There wasn't enthusiasm. And now, Darren, you mentioned she was raped and whatnot. Like maybe there's a lot more behind this, but it just was like just sort of a dark, flat pacing. And I felt like every one of these songs could have been custom crafted for a sad, dark movie or a stage play or something. Every song I felt like, ooh, I can imagine this in the background in sort of an emotional scene in a movie. I mean, Criminal's really good. I'm not even sure why, but I like it. And I'm not sure about what actually is different about it to make it catchy from the other ones. Like quite often I went back and forth. I'm like, what do I like about this song that I don't necessarily get about the other? But I can't put my finger on it. You know, Slow Like Honey almost seemed like something that Lady Gaga would do in a Broadway play. Again, it didn't quite grab me. I just felt like all these were, you know, again, in the same sad scene in a slow movie. I found myself wanting to almost punch my computer around Child Is Gone. And gosh, again, I feel really bad, but after about 2.5 songs, her voice and the entire tone just started to grate on me. I just don't get it. Like, again, I appreciate all the artistry, the complexity. I don't disagree with anything you guys have said, but it fell flat with me and kind of drove me crazy. Over to you, Scott.
Yeah, I kind of bridged the two sets of opinions here, so don't feel too bad, Scott. Off the top, having listened to the album a number of times, I'm like you, Darren. I don't think I ever noticed how strong of a presence the piano has. And I was surprised to find out too that she was classically trained on it. I'd only ever thought of her, you know, I've been captivated by her voice over the years. And I'd never taken such a concentrated look at a full album by her. And it really caught my attention. It's easy to get lost in her vocals and not realize there's actually really engaging music accompanying underneath it and sometimes taking the lead. Even I think, Shadowboxer falls into that category, one of the 3 singles. It's an all-around strong song that, you know, the more I listened to it, it stood out as much as Sleep to Dream and probably second only to Criminal. But even then, I think Criminal is tops mostly because just the really engaging that bass line and the piano and all that work that's going on is just really eclectic. Yeah, I don't know. It's almost jarring, but it all works when it comes together. I still do really like Sleep to Dream. It might be my favorite track, even though Criminal's obviously the most popular and most listened to. I like those changes of pace, the big drums, all the attitude that's oozing out of it. Yeah, like you other guys said, she goes deep and there are layers you can just get lost in. I think one of Fiona's strengths is just her ability to emote. And like you said, Scott, it's somewhat jarring, especially if you're just getting a first really solid listen to her. She's aggressive. She's transgressive. She's just fully on that darker side of the emotional spectrum. And I'm like you, Darren, that I had a deep appreciation for the lyrics on the album. And while I won't go too deep into them, you know, here, if you're into that, this is a great album considering her age at the time, like it was said, and her ability to amplify those lyrics with her unique voice. You can appreciate this album for that alone. Her voice just seems factory spec for like this type of slow, deep tone, and a couple tracks really showcase it. Maybe Sleep to Dream again. It's standing out for me simply because I haven't listened to it as much over the years. Criminal seems to always show up on the radio all the time, and you really have to go looking for Sleep to Dream. But then again, maybe that'll make it stand out for listeners out there as well too, because they won't have been inundated with it. But sadly, like you, Scott, I think there's a pretty big drop off after that. I'm excited about Pale September, but only because I can add it to my mixtape about songs that mention a month, September in particular. So I have Wake Me Up When September Ends, See You in September, September Morn, Maggie May mentioned September right at the start. And for you, Alan, Mariana's Trench, September. I just really find most of the rest of the album just to be down tempo, somewhat muted in both vocals and instrumental backing. There wasn't a lot of difference, in these songs for me too. I just couldn't distinguish really well unless you get it deep again into the lyrics, but that's not enough for me, right? It's just a third of the pie. I need that vocal and musical range just always going. And maybe like you said, Darren, maybe I am just a little bit biased towards slow albums right now. If I was coming out of a relationship where I was super gloomy, maybe, I don't know. But, there just wasn't anything wrong with songs like The Child Is Gone, Sullen Girl, Never Is a Promise. But I don't want to listen to 51 minutes of sullen, mostly low key piano music. That just isn't my thing, even if I, really adore the voice that's attached to it. So, yeah, well, I'm giving the 3 singles a giant thumbs up. And even I'll give a minor shout out to The First Taste, because that was a super quirky song. It was percussion-y, almost had like a samba vibe to it and stuff. It's a B-side winner in my mind. I just can't say that the whole album would engage my attention long. Like, I don't know if I'll give it another full listen after this month. And I'm kind of a little sad about that. I'm going to really dig deeper. I'm going to join you, Ellen. I am going to dig deeper into her discography, because this is her first album. Like you said, she's 18 when she cranks this out, and she's got more after this and more time in the industry, time to grow, time to think, all that stuff. I really am interested now to see how her styling matures over the length of her career. So I think that, if anything, that's a positive that's going to lead me down that road for sure. With that in mind, we will dig into the scores, and I will pass it back to you, Darren.
Thanks, Scott. A few more things. I always usually come back with little tidbits before I dive into my scores. But I did also appreciate, she is very outspoken and independent. And at the MTV Music Awards, when she had won back for this album, she basically used that platform. And now a lot of celebrities do it for numerous reasons. But she really stood up saying, hey, you should not hold artists on a pedestal and, be an individual, be true to yourself. She was really, she's been known as a bit of a rebel, which actually probably hurt her career. She was very independent, very outspoken. But I actually respect her for that. I think that's a good sign of a good characteristic of a person. And so I do really respect her for that. We recently just did a review of John Mayer's Continuum album. And we in the end, we were like, you know what? He just seemed to like pound that out, and it was kind of fake. We weren't a big fan necessarily of his, didn't necessarily all agree like that, but I just found it was a very derivative album and something that really didn't influence others, but he was more influenced and used that to make a good pop album, which is fine. Whereas, I did find this a little derivative. I will say I am a jazz fan, and so I was very aware of those artists like the Sarah Vaughns, Ella Fitzgerald, and the Billie Holidays. I love that kind of style of music. So for me, I'm like, oh, this sounds very much like a lot of that music. Yes, she used a modern kind of, let's say, 90s pop style a lot of times in it. And obviously the album's produced modernly, but I did find it derivative in a sense of that style of music, but realize she's taken it forward into the 90s and introduced it to more people. So I do respect that. So it's influential in that way, even though she was reusing a lot of kind of the same vocal styles and cadences of these great, especially American jazz artists. But very cool. And again, hey, we've said this before, but we're 4 white Canadian dudes. So we're a very narrow market, and we're older than her. Well, actually, I am, but yeah, actually, probably no, or not actually. Only me, probably. But anyway, she, I think she, first of all, was speaking more to girls and women. She had gone through stuff, and I mean, I think this album could really resonate, with, not necessarily just women, but I think she is speaking more to them. So we have to put yourself in those shoes. So I did appreciate that. Her criminal video was also very controversial, very kind of sexualized, and created a lot of stir. But I think she was doing that again to kind of stand up to, the man and the system. Hey, always go, Alan mentioned it, but yeah, it does, anything goes great with cannabis. Actually, Alan Cross, who we interviewed on the show, go back and listen to that, about great albums, but he just released a new show recently talking about, how music affects the mental ability and all these things. And he actually brought up that cannabis, when you are on cannabis, that your brain actually loses the process of how to predict what the sound of the next note in songs will happen. So he says that's why you enjoy it more when you're actually on cannabis, because your mind, when it hears the next note or the next part of the music, your mind is almost tricked to think it's like the first time hearing it, and it's a pleasant experience. And I found that very interesting. It's the ongoing history of new music with Alan Cross, a great Canadian, basically rock, documentarian, historian, all of it. He's just amazing. So go listen to that. But I found that cool. Tribal is a great producer here in Canada. If you're in Canada, try their weed. Cuban Links is really good. Anyway, I'll get to my scores. You know what? Influence. I'm coming into 3 there. I mean, she probably deserves more, but I just think that, it influenced some, but I think others will miss this. I think it is worth listening to. So on the recommend point, I'm going to come in at a 3.5. I think you should listen to it. She is an amazing, talented pianist and vocalist, and, so it's worth it. Just personally not my best. And overall for me, I'm going to come in at a 3.5 there. It's just, it is a good album, and others will be 5s for you. It's just very deep and intense and slow. Just not my personal style, but what an amazing artist. All right. I'll pass it on to, Alan.
Thanks. Yeah. I really enjoyed this album, obviously. I think Fiona Apple's probably found her way onto my personal Mount Rushmore for favorite female vocalists. And in case you're wondering, Grace Slick and Ann Wilson are also on that list. This is a very different album than what I would normally listen to. It's rich with texture and emotion, but it's really slow and soft and smooth and jazzy. I don't know. Not normally my jam, but I think just because of how complex and rich and textural, the overall sonic, there's a word I'm looking for, like just the sonic characteristics of it make it such an interesting album. And this is the kind of stuff that I kind of want to listen to with like a cocktail in my hand, some sativa in the bowl, while I look ponderously out my window at the city skyline and take in the complexities of the music. Actually, I think I've just got this idealized, ultra mature version of myself in my head doing exactly that, like some kind of insufferable prick. Whatever. I like what I like. Anyway, we'll jump to the numbers. Overall, I got to give this like a 4.5 out of 5. I think the songwriting, the complexities of the production, and her silky smooth vocal delivery just really make for a wicked listening experience that I am personally keen to revisit. I know, Scott, you said you probably wouldn't, but maybe give it a go after having some weed. All right, recommend 4 out of 5. Dude, I've been recommending this album all month to any of my friends who I know are musically inclined or who I think might appreciate this album. I've been letting them know what they've been sleeping on. And lastly, influence, 4 out of 5 for sure. This album has definitely influenced my tastes a bit. I've been exploring more of her subsequent releases, though to be honest, I don't think I like anything from her near as much as I like Tidal. So if there's anything you're going to listen to from Fiona Apple, make sure it's this one. That's it for me. Over to you, Scott.
Yeah, thanks again. I feel like a tool, but I just got to follow my heart on this one. Not much more to say. Recommend? I give it a 1. Like, yeah, great singer, songwriter. Okay. totally brought me down. Overall, I give it a 1, and it hasn't influenced me at all. So it's 3 1s. And I appreciate you recommending it, Scott Gregory. Like, never listened to Fiona Apple. Don't think I will again. That's 1s all across the board for me.
Jinkies. What? Okay, maybe our opinions aren't as close together.
Man, that's like
once
skunk
we-
anise levels.
Wow, really?
That
Like,
was my
you can't give it
least
like
favorite.
a 1 point.
Least favorite of the entire club we have here was that one still.
Can you upgrade her to like a 1.1 just to create a little sliver of difference between them? That's okay. You feel how you feel. I'm not going to take that from you. For me, influence, I'm going to say a 4. Alan mentioned Alanis, Tori Amos. I was really into the ladies as musicians in that time frame. I'll add Sheryl Crow, the Cranberries, Garbage, Veruca Salt. I've mentioned a number of them before. Veruca Salt is one on my island list as well too. Mentioned previously, I just really had a thing back then, and I think this is reawoken. Not just to go have a look again at Fiona, but these other artists that I enjoyed at that time as well too. Recommend, I'm only going to give it a 3.5. It's not a 1, so I don't feel so bad. But, I don't know. Like I said, if you're coming out of a breakup right now, or stuff's going bad in your life and you just want to really wallow in it, maybe I can bump this up to a 4. But if things are going pretty good for you, or you're right on the bubble and you have to choose between Shiny Happy People by REM or songs off this album, I would probably go with the REM. That is probably going to serve you better long term. Overall, though, I will bump it up to a 4. I think she came in and made waves in the music industry at that point. She's a unique voice inside of it, and I think it would be criminal for you not to at least listen through this album once, and hopefully, explore a little bit more of her music. I really like when we can go down roads that aren't chosen for us by music executives. And I feel like, as Darren said before, she was kind of pushed a bit to the side, and I think she deserves her flowers 20 years later. Yeah. So with that being said, we are closing out this month. And have we decided what's happening next?
No, I have no idea.
Another round?
I have no idea. Usually sometimes we'll tease
Right.
if I was ready, but I'm not sure. Well, we've discussed, a different kind of round. We'll do like kind of different rounds where we set some rules and guidelines around what we're doing. So Scott Coates is throwing one out there. So I think we got a noodle on it, but I think you're just going to have to tune in to the episode that will come probably at the same time as this one, flip over on the first here and listen to what I ended up picking, because I'm not sure yet, but we'll figure that out, and I'm sure it'll be fun. And hey, before we go, I do want to say, and I won't say the age, but happy birthday to Alan. Has a birthday coming up here in about a week and a bit. So happy birthday to Alan Dupuis, our Sonic Collective
That's
member.
true.
And,
Thank you.
Yeah.
Happy birthday, man.
And he's still, I was just saying, when Alan and I first started, we worked together many years ago. Actually, Scott Gregory, all three of us worked together. But I was saying to Alan, I'm like, man, when we started, I'm like, I was the old guy, we'll call it that. And I think I was 34, 35, but these guys seem like kids. And I'm like, what? You still are 20 to me, man. You can't be getting older now, but but we do age, man.
Turning 40.
Oh, you put it out there, 40, big 40.
Big 40. I came out.
Yeah,
big
man.
40.
It's a milestone, man.
You were never the old guy, man.
Congratulations, That's awesome. I love 40.
Yeah.
You just rock 40, man.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
40's the new 21.
And you look great.
Just ask
And
Leonardo.
we know this is a podcast. We don't do a visual version, but if you see Alan, he's actually like a very young looking dude. Like I still can't believe he's 40. There's no way.
Sure
Yeah,
is.
Yeah.
Yeah. If
Baby.
you did a time lapse of Alan, like it would just look the same on loop.
Yeah.
You wouldn't even notice that it had looped. It would
Maybe
just
it's
be if his
Maybelline.
beard
Yeah.
grew up a little
He
bit.
has recently, he's pretty
out.
clean shaven tonight. We were commenting on that. He's looking good.
Yeah.
He's looking good. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's very
Looking
down,
sharp.
gentlemen.
All right.
All right.
You guys
On that
can't see me
note,
blushing.
Thank you, everyone, for being here tonight. And thank you to everyone out there for being out there. Check us out on Facebook, on all the socials, and on our website, thesoniccollective.com. Stay tuned. We have a big cliffhanger this month about what we're going to do, so look on the site for that. And until then, this is Scott G, joined by Scott, Darren, and Alan. Thank you again for being a part of the Sonic Collective. We'll talk again soon. Bye-bye.
Hey, thanks for joining us on the Sonic Collective, where we've explored the music, the history, and the impact of some of the greatest albums of all time. We hope you've enjoyed our discussions and gained new insights and appreciation for the music you and we love. Join us next month for another exciting album, and until then, keep listening to great music.